I'm going to go over what we do when we have like a rush chance against, specifically in a two-on-two situation, because this is a very common rush that you'll see, and you can watch it during the game. A lot of the times, I only ever notice that this is happening because Darlene will make aggressive hand signals to whoever is with him. And so it kind of points out that this is happening. So basically, in a situation where you have two forwards bearing down on your defense for a rush chance, so, F1, F2, going towards your net, the way that we play defense is called surfing, or the way that we defend rushes is called surfing. So what would happen is, say F1 has the puck. We would have the second defenseman curl around to take the spot where the first defenseman was, and we'd have the first defenseman kind of shift into the area that's being vacated by the second defenseman. What this does is, in theory, as the forward one moves in with the puck, defenseman 2 can meet him with speed. And then obviously defenseman 1's crossing over to then cut off this pass option that is coming into the zone. Now, the issue with that is, if we do this every time, which we mostly do, if you watch our play, whenever there's like a 2-on-2 rush against, we are oftentimes doing this little crossover here. And as I've kind of stopped it here with the crossovers happening, you can see that it just kind of creates space where you have either a pass option available to your second forward here, like they either have the space vacated by defenseman 2, or forward 1 kind of gets a lot of space opened up around if they want to just take it into the zone. They don't get pushed too aggressively right away. Like they have time once this crossover happens where they can analyze the play. It just gives them a moment to think about what they're doing. I think it's mostly unproductive, because it gives kind of that gap where you can say, hey, I have forward 2 who's going to be open for a brief moment of time, or I can just take it into the corner myself. Yes, this person's defenseman 2 is going to be pressing you faster than defenseman 1 could, because you're crossing over, you're approaching with speed. But if you just kind of turn to the outside, if you take this opportunity and you move to the outside, now you can wait for more reinforcements. Yeah, maybe the rush was killed, but you just gave up kind of like or like free entry into the zone. You've just pushed them to the outside more. Or if they do manage to, if you don't execute the crossover perfectly, F2, if they see the gap, they can just sprint through, and now you have a sauce pass through the seam. And that happens to us way more often than is probably acceptable. I just don't see the value in this system. It's a cool thought. It's a unique way to approach it, and it's fun because we are the only team that does it. And I even think it was probably an acceptable experiment, as when we first started doing it, I think it caught teams off guard. But now that we do it every single time, now that it's known, now that people have the playbook, you just have to wait for that moment where the crossover is incomplete, or if they don't step at the exact same time, you're giving up gaps. And so I think without perfect execution, which, is hard to do, instead of the theory of approaching them with speed when they're entering the zone, you're really just creating gaps in your defensive coverage. And that's why I personally am of the belief that you should probably just do what every other team in the league does and continue pressuring F1 with D1 and F2 with D2. Just cover the pass with the one defenseman and just kind of keep the other guy at bay. Don't let him get a good shot off, and trust that your other defenseman is going to make sure that no pass can be completed. Every other team in the league does it like this. I think this would be a good mix-up every once in a while if Darlene or whoever is on the back end is sitting there and they're like, I don't think that I can, I don't think I've managed my gap well, and I want the other person to kind of switch with me. I think having that in your toolbox is actually helpful. making that your primary tool is predictable. And that is a coaching issue.